the reason why I'm standing here today is because 2 years ago, I walked up to my father and told him that I wanted to do an internship at a startup company here in Berlin. And this startup company happened to be a platform company. So my father looked at me and said, "Paul, don't you want to work for a company that actually produces something?" And at that point, I didn't have a good answer to tell him to how platform companies also produce things and also create value. And that is what I've been doing during my research, finding an answer to that question. And to start off this talk today, I want to show some differences between traditional companies and startup companies, these platform startup companies. And for that, I brought this little box here to show the differences. And let's imagine that this box here is a traditional company. Let's imagine that this box here is an automotive manufacturer, like let's say BMW. So inside of this box, there are resources and capabilities that the company employs to produce in the end the beautiful BMW cars. And these resources, like people, machines, components, they're all used to create then in the end value. For a platform company, however, it's a little different. Because for a platform company, some of the value creation is actually taking place outside of the company. So they are externalizing some of the value creation to the platform's ecosystem. So what does that exactly mean to take resources from outside of the company and create value then to its consumers? Let's take an example to show what that actually means. Let's take the example of Uber. Uber is a mobility platform service that is disrupting the taxi industry right now in the United States because it's forbidden here in Germany. But the platform company Uber, as I just said, is taking outside resources to create value for their customers. So if we take Uber as this company again, as this box, they are taking cars which are actually not inside of this box, but outside, and they don't own these cars, and take drivers which they actually don't really employ, but create value for their customers, and that is through facilitating the interaction between them two. So if we take this box now, it seems pretty empty now, and pretty asset light. So what's left in this box? In this box, there are left these interactions. And these interactions are really at the core of every platform company. So if you want to start a platform company, focus on the interactions. So at this point in my talk, I also want to ask a question to you as the audience. I want to ask you, do you think that the traditional car manufacturer BMW creates the same amount of value as Uber, or does it create more value than Uber? What is the valuation of the two companies at the market? Who here in the audience thinks that they create the same amount of value and that they are valued the same? Please put up your hands. The market capitalization. I can't see very many hands, and that's actually something that I expected too, because that's what my father said too. These platform companies don't create any value, so how can a company that doesn't create any value be of higher valuated in the market than the traditional car manufacturer? But in fact, I already have the slide up. As you can see on the slide, Uber, in fact, has a higher market value than BMW. So what sort of value are they actually creating, and how do they do it? Well, let's go back to the interactions that are taking place. And let's talk a little bit about these interactions. Because these interactions, as I said, are at the core of every platform business. So what the platform needs to do is to make as many interactions as possible and increase the quantity and the quality of the interactions. So the platform can increase the quantity and the quality of the interactions in many different ways. One of the ways that, and one other example that I want to give you to show how they add value to the value that is created outside of the company, out of the platform, is the platform company Instagram. Most of you guys will probably know Instagram. And Instagram introduced a couple of tools for the interactions to be increased and be improved. These tools that they introduced were, one, they introduced filters. So they introduced filters for the producers on the one side to produce better content, to produce better pictures, to increase the quality of the pictures that producers would post on Instagram. Another thing that they did was they introduced a thing called Instagram Stories, or rather, they copied it from Snapchat. But they introduced stories because it reduced the steps it took for producers to take a picture and upload it on Instagram to a single step from the 4 steps before. And by reducing the number of steps, it increased the quantity of the interactions that could take place on the platform. On the other side, you have the consumers. And Instagram also gave some tools to the consumers to, in the end, increase the interactions by introducing things called hashtags. I think you've heard of them. And they make it easier for the consumers to find the pictures that they are looking for. And because these hashtags are describing things that you see on the pictures. A second way in which platforms can increase the quantity and the qualities of the interactions is by learning from each and every interactions that is taking place on the platform. Another example I want to give you to explain that is Spotify. I'm a big fan of Spotify, I have to admit. And Spotify is also learning from every interaction that is taking place on its platform. It is learning from the songs that people listen to, and it's learning from the songs that I listen to too. And it's able to show me more songs that I might like too. And there's this feature called Discovery. And I can just press Discovery, and it will keep on suggesting songs to me that I like. Another example of where a platform learns from the interaction is Google. Who here in the room wouldn't agree that Google is actually creating value? I mean, we wouldn't be able to search things from the whole World Wide Web without Google. But Google is only able to show you what we are looking for from the web because it's learning from the interactions that are taking place on its platform. For every click that you're making on Google, you're giving a feedback to Google, telling it what the right search result is for the search request that you did. And not only your own click is improving the interactions, but every interaction from the whole network, from the whole platform, is increasing the value of the whole platform and of the whole network. Another example where a platform learns is Facebook. I bet everyone here in the room has a very customized newsfeed. And the newsfeed is also an example where the platform learns. It is with every click and every like and every post that you're doing on Facebook, it is learning about your taste and it's learning what you want to see on the newsfeed. And by learning what you want to see on the newsfeed, it is also increasing the desire to use Facebook even more. So some people might even say that people are becoming addicted to Facebook these days. But I want to go back to the slide, I think that just came up here. There are more examples of where these disruptive new companies, platform companies, are challenging the old traditional companies from the industry. The second example here is the Airbnb company. Airbnb, in fact, has also a higher valuation than its traditional competitor, the Marriott Hotel Group. Did you know how the story of Airbnb started? Let me tell you. There were 2 graduate students who just finished university and moved to San Francisco. And they moved into an apartment that they could barely afford. So what did they do? They took out an air mattress and put it up in the living room and turned the living room into a bed and breakfast and offered this room to travelers coming to San Francisco. And thereby, they created value from something that they already owned. They just made this value accessible to the market. I bet many people here in the audience have been guests and have booked rooms over Airbnb. But maybe you have also been a host. Maybe you have rented out your guest room or your apartment to someone else. And that is in fact something very remarkable about platform companies as well. It is the ability to convert consumers also into producers. And it's in the best interest of making as many consumers into producers. Because it's much cheaper for Airbnb, because you are already on the platform to then just convert you into a producer too. In fact, 5 days ago, I got a notification from Facebook telling me that I haven't posted anything for the last 15 days. Shame on me. But in the same way, Facebook told me that I was only a passive consumer of the newsfeed or of the Facebook, and they wanted to convert me back again into producing something. And they wanted to increase the number of interactions that are taking place on Facebook. So these 2 prior distinct sides of a platform are now becoming to overlap. And examples like Airbnb and Facebook are just 2 examples of that. The last point I want to make to show how these platforms create value is that they are aggregating fragmented markets. And that's probably something that you might have heard before. There's another story I can tell you about that. Because when you were traveling in the past, let's say you were traveling to Munich, you would have to look up the local taxi, and you wanted a taxi, you would have to look up the local number of the local taxi company to call the taxi. And then if you went to another city, you would have to do the same again. But My Taxi, in fact, just aggregated and put them all onto one platform and was able to make it more efficient and easier, and the user experience much easier, much better, to book your taxi. I want to end my talk by encouraging people that fear the power of platforms and that think that platform businesses are destroying businesses, to be more optimistic, to look more optimistic into the future and think of their own ways of how they can employ these new technologies and these new business models to create value. And the shift towards these new technologies has long happened, towards the internet and mobile internet. So you have to think of ways to employ these technologies. And I want to encourage for everybody here to release more uncaptured value from their ecosystem and shape the future of decentralized production. Thank you very much.